Zero and the Search for Effective Zen. Episode 6. What is manifested activity? What if I told you you don't actually exist? Well, at least not in the way you think. Because if the universe is just activity, then you, are also just activity. A cycle between nothing and something, between a zero self and a manifested self. Confused? Good. That means your brain is working. Last time we asked, what do we mean by a manifested activity? And we found that before anything happens, before fire burns, before you decide to binge watch this video, there has to be a set of conditions making it possible. That's what we called zero activity. The perfect storm of conditions waiting to erupt into something. But when that something does emerge, when activity finally arises, what happens next? Here's where things get spicy. At some level, every manifested activity contains the seeds of its own destruction. Fire doesn't just burn, it also consumes the logs that sustain it. Your excitement to start a new hobby is tempered by the many years of habit that did not include the time to practice. Expansion and contraction, plus and minus, these two opposing forces are always at play. Every manifested activity, every single one, is doomed to return to zero. And this isn't just some abstract theory. The Buddha talked about it over 2,000 years ago in the Anattalakkhana Sutta, Characteristics of the Not-Self. When he said that form and feeling and consciousness are all characteristics of not-self, he wasn't being poetic. He was teaching that what we think of as self is simply an activity that arises from the simple realities of form and feeling and consciousness. The result of plus thoughts such as, this is mine, I am this is myself, and minus thoughts such as, this is not mine, I am not this is not myself. You've probably felt this yourself. One moment you're convinced, this is me. And the next? Wait, maybe not. That's the manifestation of self. Or better, perhaps, the manifestation of a sense of self. Plus and minus. Expansion and contraction. And the return to zero, the not-self, occurs when both plus and minus thoughts completely disappear. Let's remind ourselves of the Zen master Joshu Sasaki's summary of all existence. Zero inevitably splits into naturally opposing activities, plus and minus, expansion and contraction, which inevitably disappear back into zero. That is, all activities inevitably arise from zero, as plus and minus activities. And all activities inevitably return to zero when those plus and minus activities cancel each other. You, me, this video. And finally, why this matters. First, with this expanded understanding of manifested activity, we now have a more fundamental explanation of impermanence. And second, we may now have a better perspective on how to actually make manifested activities disappear. In the case of our campfire, we can wait for it to burn out, or we can pour water on it. And likewise, for a mind that seems to have its own agenda, stuck on the near shore, we can wait for the thoughts to die out, or we can... what? So that's it for this episode. But before we disappear, let's tee up the next topic. Spirituality. And so the question for the next episode, what is spirituality?